Okay, well, we'll start. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jonathan Taylor. I'm an application engineer for Civil Survey Solution based in Sydney. And we've also got Andrew Banson on the line today.
Hi everyone, welcome to the web session.
Thanks, Andrew. So look, for those of you that didn't make the webcast yesterday, part one, or did make the webcast and want to watch it again, on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube, and then you can search for Civil Survey Solutions, the webcast or part one of these two webcasts is now available for view. You can go ahead and see that there. The webcast today is really going to be based predominantly around Model Viewer. There's a lot of extra content that has gone into Model Viewer to improve it and add new functionality. So there's a lot to get through, as you can probably see on this particular slide. So we're not going to hang around too much on this particular slide talking about all of the individual pieces. We are better off talking through these in context and actually showing you a lot of what these new features are actually doing. So for those of you that weren't on the webcast yesterday was pretty much covering a lot of the tools and functionality around civil site design, 19.2, vertical grading editor, and some of the other functionality that we've now added in, cross-section windows, surface editing tools. Certainly worth a watch if you didn't get a chance to see that particular webcast. What I'm going to do is just pause my screen, and just bring up the civil site design environment or Civil 3D environment. So today, again, much like yesterday, I'll be working on civil site design sitting on top of Civil 3D, and Andrew will be sitting on, Andrew, is it BricsCAD or AutoCAD? I can't remember.
I'm on Civil 3D today.
You are Civil. Oh, you are on Civil 3D. My apologies. Okay, we are singing in unison then. Excellent. All right.
And BricsCAD and BricsCAD. The last part I'll do in BricsCAD.
We're spoiling them. Okay. So really, I guess in a sense, the platform isn't quite as relevant today because we're not doing too much in respect of string design. But nevertheless, at least we've got a bit of contrast between the two platforms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up Model Viewer. Now I have to remind myself whether or not I've got it already open, and I'm going to make sure I've got a clean screen for you guys. There we go. We're going to fire up Model Viewer. So this is a job that's already been worked on. Obviously, what I'd love to be doing now at this particular point is parking Model Viewer onto another screen and working with it there. But obviously, due to constraints, we can't really work like that. The first thing that I'm going to be focusing on for you guys is objects. So if you haven't used objects before in civil site design, then this is a great opportunity to see how they work, but also see the changes that have gone into inserting them and how that they can be used later on, which is something Andrew will show you, to actually give you blocks and CAD output within the drawing environment. What I'm going to do is pop over to the Objects tab. Now, there are other additions and changes to some of these other tabs, and Andrew will talk you through some of the content, particularly in toggle display. I'm going to go over some of the sort of base updates to things like objects and extrusions and pipes. So currently, if you haven't seen objects, the idea is that we are able to bring in OBJ files and have those placed within the drawing environment to give you some context for your design. Now, what I'm going to do is click on the Import Object button. In fact, what we'll do is we'll make Model Viewer full screen.
And Jonathan, with the new objects, we also support 3ds files now as well. So OBJ and 3ds, yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to go to the Import Object button and just do that again. My apologies. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I'm going to go to the File tab. Now, I'll mention this just briefly, but what happens is the default folder location is the visualization folder found in your Common 10, and the populated content that's in here, particularly my signs, has actually been added to in this particular release, and this has come through something called a visualization pack, which I'll come to shortly once I've just shown you how this works. Now, the folders actually contain some of the base imagery information that goes into making up the OBJ file. So I don't really need the folders. What I'm actually going to do is go to the warning signs, ignore the folders for the time being and come down and pick you can see there's a lot of content we've added in. There's a huge sign library that some of the team have put together to make this possible. So there's a vast wealth of signage that's gone in. We'll just pick the first sign, click on open. What you'll get is a live preview of the sign on the right-hand side. Now, what happens is the software will actually read the folder and continue to preview other OBJ files related to that particular folder. So if I hit this right arrow button, as I'm scrolling through, the file path name is changing and I'm getting a live preview of the sign that I want. So what I'm going to do is just pick a generic one, just fire myself through here. Okay, so we've got a right-hand turn coming up here. Not that we'd be putting this particular sign there, warning the fact that there's a right-hand turn in this subdivision, but nevertheless, it's a good opportunity to place the sign in. So I'm just going to simply place the name in here called sign. Now, in the previous release, or releases of Civil Site Design, it used to be that you'd reference the location of the sign, both horizontally and vertically, based on a click in the drawing, and then a surface was referenced. Quite simple, okay? You can still do that, but we've actually expanded the way in which it can be done. So if I click on Setup Position, you've now got this form you'll see used in many different locations within Model Viewer. Okay, it's a really good form, and because it's such a good form, we apply it in many different particular locations within Model Viewer. So I'll show you that a little bit later. You can now obviously specify locations. So if you could do this before, you could go and pick a location on plan and have the software just simply place the origin of that particular OBJ file in that position in the drawing environment. What you can also now do is reference an alignment midway between two alignments, reference a string, maybe reference a code. In fact, that's what we may do in a minute. And midway between two codes. So maybe we want it in the middle of a footpath, for example. I'll use reference alignment. The great thing about this is that when I go reference alignment and actually go and pick the alignment off screen, which in this case will be road 1, we're going to be putting the sign in this area here. I can go and pick the chainage. It's so much easier doing this than having to actually manually type all this in. We'll go offset. Maybe we'll say, in fact, you know what? Reference string, we'll go code. Okay, I'm actually going to pick the horizontal. I'm getting myself sort of caught between which one to do. So what I'm going to do is just go offset. I'm actually going to just manually pick a location. So there we go, 7 meters from the center line. Now, the nice thing about the angle is that because I'm referencing an alignment, the software should rotate the OBJ for me in reference to the actual direction of the road, which is what I want. The next part of this is to specify an elevation, which I can type in. I can choose a string or a code, which is what I remember now I was going to be doing. In this case, I'm going to use that. So I'm going to go reference string code and road 1, use please the level of the code RFPO. So that's basically the outside footpath code. So if I go and change that, which conveniently I'm going to do in a minute, the idea is that this the base elevation of this particular OBJ will change. I'm going to click on apply and then go import. You can see the sign's gone in. So it's gone in based on the position where I've clicked in respect of the offset and the chainage, and that...
Jonathan, sorry, Jonathan, can I just butt in there?
Please.
On our visualization pack, there are a couple of signs that we realized were incorrect, and we're going to update it next week. And you've unfortunately picked one of the signs that doesn't have a image on it.
That was
so
part of the plan to promote this discussion.
So you want to try maybe with a giveaway sign or something like that.
Yeah, we'll go edit 3D model.
Just so people, just so people know, we're supplying a visualization pack, which is a separate download of all of these signs. And we found that of the hundreds, there's a few that did come through properly.
Maybe we'll cover that if we get time at the end, just to go through the process of adding another one. But yeah, suffice to say that a good 99% of them do actually have the actual the image located on them, which is good. One thing, the purpose of adding this sign in is also to show you how you can really use Model Viewer in your day-to-day design work. The idea being that if I, for example, wanted to, particularly with the new right-click cross-section editing, you can actually right-click on top of the string that you're editing, which in this case is road 1. You can access the design variations, batter overrides, and section data form just by right-clicking in Model Viewer. Now, very recently, since we've had this sort of being beta tested, I found myself with Model Viewer parked off to one side, and I'm accessing the strings and accessing the design data and whatnot and the vertical grading just by right-clicking in Model Viewer. It's a lot more efficient than going up to the ribbon, finding the tool, clicking on the string that you're wanting to edit. This is far quicker. So what I'm going to do is go add variation, modify section, match code to surface. The idea being that I'm going to move the right footpath code down here onto the natural surface. It will look diabolical, but the idea is that this sign will also move down with it. So all I'm going to do here is say between chainage about 40, the speed will go 120, take the RFPO code and move it onto the natural surface. And I'm just going to use optional inside code here. This is basically saying keep the existing slope between the following sections maintained. So I'm going to go RFPI. Click apply. Then the idea is that this footpath should maintain its slope, but drop. So you can see what it's done there. There we go. And that object has come down with it nicely. So those objects are great, added in individually, but in a scenario maybe where you've got multiple different objects that you want to add in, we've actually got something called object grouping. So if I go up to the groups button, and as soon as I do that, I've already preset this. Okay, so what I've basically said is what I want to happen is for a particular object to be placed at a set interval and reported along, in this case, an alignment. So I've basically given it a name, set up the position. This position is basically an alignment. So I'm saying, right, I want to horizontally fix the location of this street, all these street lights to be 5 meters to the left of the center line, minus being left, positive being right. And you'll actually see them the other way around because I'm looking at the alignment in reverse. And then I want the vertical position to be based on the right shoulder code. Okay, so again, if that code gets changed later on, the position of it will change. We then go and decide how we want those objects to be added, and we can see here that we've got by chainage range at interval, which is what I've used, by sections, or we've got by single chainage. When we go add, it's a case of cherry picking the OBJ file, choosing the start chainage, end chainage, and the interval. Much the same way that we added the imagery, added the object for the previous solution. When we get that, we get it into a little group, which is nice and neat, puts everything together, and it means we can actually delete the entire group as well. If I click on close, really you should be looking up the road this way. You can see that we've got these OBJs being added in intermittently within that group. Andrew will mention something about can output, but this is really great. The visualization pack that we've got, I'll just fire up Chrome here, or my browser, sorry. If you go to the Civil Site Design website, go to download and click on country packs, there is an Australian visualization pack. What this does is it includes the OBJ files and then the associated CAD blocks that go alongside that particular OBJ. Now, in respect of further visualization and giving again context, what I've got here, and you probably saw this yesterday if you're on the webcast and probably seen it in the videos as well, that we've got a building pad. Now, traditionally we've gone ahead and said, well, go and create a surface of some sort that's got, and you go through that process to try and give some kind of context. You don't really need to do that anymore. What I've got in the drawing environment is a polyline, and here she is, and I'm just going to bring up the properties so you can see. Polyline, it's on layer underscore building ext for extrude, and that's all it is. What I want to happen is to give me some context for this building, I'd like to see that polyline basically extruded. The tool does exactly what it says on the tin and extruded into the drawing environment. So what I'm going to do is click on extrusions. I've got a couple in there already. They're turned off at the moment. So the one we're looking at is building. The way it works is we give this extrusion a name, nice and simple, which is the name on the left. We pick a layer on which the polyline is found. So in this case, it's building_ext. You then pick a material for the side and the top. These are materials found in your materials list. And in newer releases or the latest release of the software, we've actually included some textures, building textures, which you can add. You can choose to use them or the ones that are already in there. They are basically found in here. They are JPEGs. So if you want to go ahead and get your own and pop them into this folder, you can do that. What we are doing in this case is just simply assigning two different colors, one for the side, one for the top. The base elevation works in exactly the same way as the positioning that you've seen before. So what I'm saying is position the base of this polyline on a reference surface, which happens to be a grading string. By the way, that's dynamic as well. And for the top elevation, I can actually set a value if I choose, or I can say, right, use the same surface, and in this case, it's a 6 meter high structure. Click on cancel because I'm not going to make any edits to that. Click on close. I'm going to turn on the extrusion, so these can be turned on and off visually in the drawing environment. You'll see there we've got that going on there. The great thing is I've got what should technically be sort of an acoustic barrier going on here as well. So you can use these. Andrew will show you. These can actually be, these will interact with your sight distance. So it will act as an obstruction through your sight distance checking, which is very, very quick and easy to do. Really, the last part of my part of the presentation is really just to show you the pipes. So what I've got in the drawing environment is a pipe network, which I've created. In fact, I've got a couple of services in there as well, just for a bit more context. What we'd like to do now is just simply see these in effectively as solids in the 3D environment in Model Viewer. So what we're going to do is go to the Pipe Networks tab. And in there, we've got a few different networks. Now, when the software enters these, you will see them as Network 1, Network 2, Network 3, regardless of the network name you've provided them with at present. So I have renamed these, but we offer you the chance to do that and provide different colors for different your individual networks, and then also label the networks if you choose. So I might just put on a pipe label here for the electric. I'm going to turn these on. One thing you need to do before you run this is make sure that you have at least opened up part of the network that you're displaying in the vertical grading editor. Okay, just gives the chance the software to check everything, make sure it's running as it should. Then you can display it in the Model Viewer environment. Okay, you might find you get a slightly different result if you don't, but as long as you open it up in the vertical grading editor, you'll find you have no problems. Now, what I've ended up here with is pits and pipes, which you can't really see. So what I should have done here was just have some material transparency applied, which I'm just very quickly going to do now. Normally what I have is transparency all set on these, and then I just uncheck use transparency and turn it on when I need it. So we'll just quickly go down. I think there's another one down here called topsoil, and click OK. Just give this a second to work its magic, and we should be good to go. There we go. Okay, so I've basically just gone through and made those transparent. You can see there how we've now got the. It's a very, very neat little way of just being able to add in and give some context to your pits and your pipes. And again, this is the first sort of stage of development of this particular tool. So this is just the first pass. This is only going to be improved and made even better than what it currently is. Now, Andrew, have I missed anything there? Is that in respect to the pipe? You can see there the label. I think I can probably hand the presenting to you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, look, as Jonathan said, yeah, we're going to be doing a lot more work with Model Viewer, and we are looking to export and import IFC files as well. So that's sort of where we're heading. Seems to be where the industry is sort of going towards, more model-based and IFC, BIM, all that type of thing. Okay. Well, Jonathan, can you see my screen okay?
I can, yeah.
Loading now?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so look, this version of Model Viewer in 19.2, we're sort of calling it Model Viewer version 2 because there's been a lot of work done on it and a lot of rewriting of Model Viewer to make it run a lot faster. And you will notice that it's a much faster engine. When you display a design in Model Viewer, and I'll just quickly open up Toggle Display, what you're doing is you're telling the software to trim the design out of the base surface, and the software sort of cutting holes in the base surface where the design exists. And in the previous version, that was quite a slow operation. So if you had lots of dense triangles, you know, that operation for cutting surfaces in to the base was quite slow. We've developed that engine, and it's a lot more faster. In Toggle Display, you will see a few extra settings. I'm going to just quickly run through these. I'm not going to go into too much detail. But on the base surface, you can choose whether or not you use this new engine, which I recommend you do. It's a lot faster. You can also revert back to the old Model Viewer engine if you want. But I just wanted to point those settings out. There are a few extra tabs on the ribbon. One is for 3D display, and inside here you can turn on things like shadows. So if you have a look in my Model Viewer, you can see some of my signs in the wall as a shadow. You can also set up a light source, and I guess the aim here in the future is maybe that we could position the sun and get some more realistic shadows based on where we are in the world, what time of the day it is, that type of thing. So, and if you're working on really large surfaces, which we have come across, guys sort of displaying 20-kilometre roads in Model Viewer, there was an issue where the camera seemed to be clipping the plane, and you didn't get a really nice view from the person's eye, I guess. But anyway, we've added this new clipping plane rate. So if you do displaying a huge model in Model Viewer, you might want to increase that value, make it maybe 0.01 or something like that. There's a tab called Object Display. This is a really quick way of going in and turning on and off what features you want to see in Model Viewer. And the Utilities tab has been improved. It now displays a log every time you refresh Model Viewer. It basically tells you what it's done and will highlight any errors in here, which will make it easy for us to debug your issue if you do encounter one and send your data to us via the support system. Okay, so let's talk about the new features, and I'm going to start off by showing you sight distance, because sight distance we have basically rewritten. If I go to the Analysis tab and click on sight distance, this is what the tab looks like now. And previously, in the older version, you would just pick a road and you could only do sight distance along the road. What we have now is the ability to calculate sight distance anywhere using referencing different strings or surfaces. And you set up the sight distance using a sight distance table. So I'm just going to open up Manage Tables here. This is what the form looks like, and I have set up two tables on the left here for this particular road. Now this is an 80-kilometre road, and I've set up a sight table for the forward and reverse directions. So how it works is you give the sight table a name, and you can also specify a associated string. Now, when you calculate sight distance, so for example, stopping sight distance, the software will take into account the vertical geometry. So if we're going uphill, then there's a correction on the sight distance, a negative correction. And if we're going downhill, the software will increase the sight distance to account for braking and all of that type of thing. That's all set up in the styles that come with the software. We have a whole bunch of Osro styles. But if you specify the string here, then we will read your profile and make the adjustments for you. The next thing we need to do is position the driver eye height, or the driver eye position, sorry, and the target position. Now this is actually using that same position form that Jonathan showed you. The idea of using this position form is that you set up a relationship with a road or a string or a surface or whatever. And so if there are changes made to that string or the surface, then tools like the site table can dynamically update their positioning rather than sort of using fixed positions. It also means you have a lot more flexibility in regards to positioning exactly where you want, whether it's off a code or off an alignment, off a string, between two alignments, between two codes. In this example, I've told the software that my eye will be referencing this string, and the eye of the driver will be between the center line and LEB codes, and we're referencing levels of total model. The actual eye height comes from the style that I pick later on. I've done something similar to the target, so I've said that I want to position the target between two codes from my string between center line and RE, and we're referencing surface levels of total model. Okay, so then after that, you just pick the design style you want to use and apply that to the road at an interval. So the smaller the interval, the more accurate the analysis will be. And I've just picked every 10 meters, I'll apply this stopping sight distance analysis. The aim with the tables is you could have a few in here for the one road, one that's picking, say, sight distance, a stopping sight distance, and another that might be doing overtaking sight distance, and you could quickly change between those. But that's pretty much it. Now, if I am doing creating a table for reverse, then you just want to make sure you tick the reverse direction. The other reason I've set up a forward and reverse check is later on I'm going to show you how to automate the line marking. This is one of the big new features in Civil Site Design version 19.2. So I can use the results from these tables to automate the line marking along the center line of this road, and that's where we're getting to with this. Okay, so if I wanted to say show the results for one of those tables, I simply tick on show visible or show obstructed. Generally, I will just turn off show visible and show obstructed, and then I can change that to forward. All right, you can see the results for the forward direction. So when I automate my line marking later on, we should have sort of barrier lines through this region. So we'll check that out.
Andrew, would it be possible to just make that full screen? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
A bit better?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Now I'll get to, actually I might as well do an intersection check. So we've also improved the intersection check. It now uses a similar sort of site table. In the previous version, you could actually only do one intersection check, and now you can create a site table for all the intersections in the job. Now I've actually got one set up for this intersection. So I'm going to click on the intersection check icon here. This is where we set it up. So it's actually very similar to the last version. However, in order to position the vehicle and where we want to do the check along the road, we use that position class that we've been showing you. So in this case, I position the car using the position class, and I've said, look, along this side road between centerline and LEB, at this change is where I want to position the car. And then looking to the left, I'm looking between the centerline and LEB of my main road, and then looking towards the right, I'm looking between the centerline and the REB. And the site distance comes from the style, the criteria style that I pick here. Okay, let's make that full screen. And the intersection checks will also appear in this table here. So if I tick on, say, show visible, you can see the results for that site check. Now my site check is all good for this intersection. Now, if I click on report, we get a nice detailed report indicating or showing the results for each of those checks that we've done. And one thing that I really like showing people is as you click on an entry in the report, and the entry is essentially a sightline, what we do is we show a yellow ball indicating the target. So this is taking the parameters from that, the site style, the distance away is the site distance, and the target's the height of the ball there is the target height. And it's sort of like Pac-Man mode. As I sort of skip through the entries here, you can sort of see that ball moving along the road there. I like to call it Pac-Man mode. We need to have some Pac-Man noises on this command, I think. But it's a nice visual check as well, checking to make sure that you're getting good sight distance at an intersection. This road being an 80-kilometre road, it could curve, the horizontal, might be a horizontal curve just up around here. We'd be able to review the results quite easily using this report. This report can be outputted to a table in the drawing or an Excel spreadsheet. So if you needed to prove the results to someone, you can. So there's options here to output to AutoCAD table or export to a file. Now, as Jonathan mentioned, the addition of extrusions is really useful, not only for sort of showing buildings or other structures in Model Viewer, but for using extrusions to calculate sight distance. So I'll just turn on my sight distance lines again. That was for maybe the main road. And I'm just going to do something really stupid. This is acoustic barrier wall. I'm going to move the polyline across the road and refresh my sight distance. I'm just going to pick this polyline and move it. Okay. And I'm going to rerun my sight distance. All right. Now, you can see there that I'm now getting a whole bunch of red because the software is also detecting against that extrusion. So the extrusions are good also to sort of create a corridor of sort of maximum sight that you would check off the road as well. But there could be other reasons as well. You might have some sort of overpass or something, and you want to check the sight lines against the overpass. There's lots of uses for it, but I think that's a pretty cool addition to the software. In fact, the sight distance now takes those into account. Okay. Now that we're in 3D, we have added a new way of calculating sight distance. So rather than the traditional point-to-point draw a line sight check, which is, these guidelines exist in Austroads, we have created a new planar check, which I guess for 3D sort of makes a little bit more sense. The idea behind it is you pick a sight table that you've created and you create a plane with a simple width and height dimension. And what the software will do is calculate the percentage of visible area on that plane. So let me show you how it works. If I click on planar check, pick the sight table, specify the height of the plane, and then I'll go and perform the check. So this would be good if, say, you had a pedestrian crossing or a school zone or something, and you wanted to make sure that the driver could, see the crossing and see maybe, pedestrians about to enter the crossing. It gives you a more visual check rather than the point-to-point line. So what I do is I click on Perform Check, and you can see it's using all the values from my sight table. It's positioning the plane at the sight distance and the dimensions I've plugged in there. And then in the table, it's reporting the percentage of visible area of that plane. And there might be certain areas where, we may be only seeing 50% of that plane, or maybe none at all. Okay, so that's almost finished. So if I go back and click through this table, you can see the site check updates, and you can see where I'm sort of getting 83%, 82% visibility. You can filter the results here based on the visibility percentage. So I could say, look, show me anything less than 90%, for example. You can export this report to a table or CSV file or a HTML file. So if I click on Export HTML, what the software does is it outputs this HTML for each of the sections that I have in this table, but mine have been filtered a little bit. It displays an image with the plane and sort of explain or detailing the results for that site check there. So I think it's a pretty cool method of doing a site check. It's another way of making sure that your road's safe. There's no issues, but it's very simple to do. If you've got a site table, you can see how quick it is just to go and run a planar check on that. So it'd be interesting to get people's feedback on that, whether they would use it or not. But as I said, because we're in 3D now, we can do these types of analysis. Okay, so we've got the site table. So what I'm going to do next is automate the line marking of this center line using the site tables. So if I head across to the line marking tab, you'll see that we've got a whole bunch of extra commands on here. One called lane styles, one called length rules, another one called marking overrides. I'll explain what each of these do, but before I do that, I might just go ahead and automate the line marking. So if I click on marking setup, and this works exactly the same as the form is pretty much exactly the same as it was, except we now have this extra tab called by lane, and this is how you use this new automated method. We've sort of set this up for multi-lane highways, so you could create the line marking for for multiple lanes all in one hit. In this case, I'm just going to automate the center line of this road. So I click on Add Line, and this will be the center line of my road. Once again, we use the position class. In this case, it's to position the line marking. So I just want it at the center of my road, and the levels I want from total model. Apply. And then what I need to do is pick a site table for forward, a site table for reverse, and a lane style, which I'll explain in a sec. So at the moment, I've got both site tables are forward, so I'm just going to make site table to reverse, and then I'm going to tell the software to compute the lane line marking. So if we have a look at the road, zoom back in here, you can see that got sort of broken dashed line, but as we get to that area where we've got the side obstructions, I have the barrier line marking. Okay, and then we go back to dashed line. Now, there are a whole bunch of rules that you can set up and customize that software will use to automate the line marking. So, as part of Austroads or other standards, you have minimum length of barrier line marking. You have minimum length between barrier line marking, and you can go in and set those up. And those minimum lengths are based off speed. So let me just quickly run through. If I click on length rules, this is where you can set up the barrier lane length rules. Now I've just got mine all at 0. No, I think as part of the in-store, we actually might just open one up because I'm pretty sure, yeah, we do. We've got a few standards set up. They must be an American standard. If I just go to standard style, you can see for different speeds, I have a minimum length of barrier and a minimum length between. So I'm pretty sure this is Australian standards. Sometimes the regions don't transition nicely. So we do also have an automatic region adjustment, just so the line marking, say going from dash to double happens nice and smoothly, I guess, the best way to explain it. If you're not happy with the line marking, you can maybe try the automatic adjustment, and you can recalculate the lanes just by clicking this calculate lanes button up the top. Okay. So I actually get a different result now that I've used this speed table that indicates minimum length and minimum length between. Actually, a bit more realistic now. But you can play with these numbers, save your own styles if you like. So in order to determine whether we're putting in barrier or whether we're putting in dashed line, if there's obstructions occurring on our sight distance, all that happens using lane styles. I won't spend too much time on this, but you'll get the idea quickly of how this works. So I applied a style called centerline, and all it's saying is if both directions are unobstructed, then we just want a general dash line. If both directions are obstructed, then we want the continuous line marking, and you can see we're setting the offsets for those. If we've got a forward obstructed, reverse obstructed, these are the styles that we want to apply. So it's pretty simple, but once this is all set up, you can see how easy it is for the software to automate that line marking. As you'll see later, anything that we calculate in Model Viewer, such as the line marking or the sight distance, we can export back into AutoCAD as well. Now, the final command on line marking I wanted to show you is marking overrides, because along the road there might be driveways or other side roads or whatever, and we want to break the line marking up, and maybe we just want to remove the line marking between a certain region, or maybe where there's an intersection or something like that, or even replace the line marking. Maybe you're not happy with the automation and you just want to say, well, from here to here I want to override the line marking with something else. You can do all that with marking overrides. So let me just show you how it works. I'm just going to open up marking overrides, and I'm going to add a new one. How it works is I select my road and I create a corridor, a search corridor off this road, and the software will search for line marking and only apply this override to line marking it finds. So for example, if I wanted to just override the center line marking and not the edges, then I put a shorter search offset in. Okay, if I wanted to override by including everything, then I would increase that to maybe -10 or 10. So I might just call this one override 1. And I don't want to override everything, so I'm just going to pick a chainage range, maybe through here, through this curve. Okay. I'll explain the replacement later. If I go close, all right, you can see that this is my line marking override. So I've got no line marking there. As I said, it could be a driveway or an intersection or something there. The other thing you can do is you can actually replace the line marking in that region. So maybe instead of having nothing, maybe I want to put in some dashed line marking. So let me just go to dashed, pick an offset, let's just go offset 0 and close. All right, so let's do something a bit better than that. Okay, so you can see not only am I able to cut out, wipe out parts of the line marking, but I can also replace it with different types of line marking. So I think sometimes it's important that when you're automating something, you give users the flexibility to change it if they're not happy with the results, and that's really what the marking overrides allow you to do. All the reports are still the same. If I click on marking report, we can get linear lengths of line marking, lengths for all the different types of line marking that's been calculated. And there is also an option, if you want, to essentially explode this line marking so that it becomes the standard alignment based labeling, which you may have seen before. You might have used before in the previous version. That would give you a bit more control, once again, over the styles and the regions. Okay, so let's have a look at CAD output. When I go to the Outputs tab, we have a command called CAD output. And what this allows you to do is take objects such as the line marking and push them to model space as CAD entities. Now, you can do this for line marking, site distance, and 3D objects. So I won't do it for the site distance, but those green and red site lines that you saw, they could be outputted as lines in AutoCAD. For the line marking for each of the different styles, you can preset a layer for those. Now, for the objects, probably should point this out. Jonathan earlier in the session was showing you object groups. Object groups. Now, I've actually got 3 object groups set up. I've got one for lighting, one for signage on the left side of my road, and one for signage on the right side of the road. And if you have a look, I've got these are all from Australian Country Kit. So I've got curve warning signs, curve hazard signs, displaying. At the start of the road, I've got an 80-kilometre speed sign. Okay. Now, as part of the Country Kit, we also have an AutoCAD block version of each of those, which means if you do add signage in 3D, you can use CAD output, and CAD output will position the AutoCAD version of that in model space. So let's just go back to CAD output, and I'm going to go to the 3D Objects tab. Now, it'll actually assign the AutoCAD block automatically for you. So what we're looking at here is a list of all my objects in 3D, what layer they're going to be created on in CAD, and their AutoCAD block version. So there's actually a folder in Civil Site Design that stores all these blocks, and if it finds an associated block, then it'll automatically assign it for you. So you can see my street lights are getting the light pole, and for all my other signs, I'm getting CAD version. The rotate means that the software will automatically rotate that CAD block to be the same rotation of our sign. So if we didn't want to rotate the blocks in CAD, then we just tick that off. So if you're using, if you created your own objects or whatever, you want certain things to be put on a particular layer, you can save this whole CAD output as a style and just reopen it whenever you want to use it. Okay, so you do have that flexibility. So if I click on output, and just go back to CAD. Let me explain what we've got here. So firstly, we've got our line marking. So I've got my edge lines and my center line all appearing in model space. And I also have blocks for all the signs that I created. So I've got a giveaway sign up the top there. Okay, got a stop sign. And then I had an 80-kilometre sign at the start. Right? So I think it's pretty cool, the fact that it does that. And the other thing as well is if I was to move this road, because all those objects are dynamically referenced off the road, all of these objects will update, and we can also set CAD output to automatically update when we click refresh. But if I did make a change, I could just select output, and it would re-output all my blocks and line marking back into CAD for me. Cool, and you can see the lighting that I have there also. Okay, and look, right at the end, we will have a Q&A. So if you have questions on any of this functionality that we're showing you, then yeah, please fire away. Because I have a whole bunch of objects in 3D, and this particularly for the signage, I guess, we do have an objects report, which I think you'll find pretty useful. So if you, what this one does is it lists all my objects, and based off the alignment I pick, and I should probably pick my main road here, it's reporting for me the chainage and offset for each of those objects. And I can push that out to a table or a Excel file as well for set out. And you can also go to object totals, and it gives you a count for each of the different signs and street lights as well. So another good summary of the objects that we've created in Model Viewer. So I guess what we're trying to promote here is Model Viewer is more than just a visualizer. You can use it while you're working on your design. You can use it for analysis. You can use it to save you time creating the line marking and the blocks in the drawing. And as you saw, Jonathan at the start of the session was using it even for design. You can add variations in here now, override batters, and this section design data form is really fantastic. And just to give you an example, often when we do tech support and we're reviewing people's jobs, sometimes that the design data form variations list can look really, really long. It can be 50 entries, 50 plus entries in there. What this does is list just variations, edits that are happening at that section. So it's certainly going to make life easier for us doing support, but I think it'll make life easy for you as well in order to review what's actually happening at a particular section. So that's Model Viewer. There was one last thing I wanted to show you. It's really just a very quick demonstration of the new point cloud functionality. And I've just switched to BricsCAD. Now, let me just quickly talk about this data set that I got my hands on. Point cloud data is becoming freely available online. There's a few websites where you can go and find some really nice point clouds. This one was actually Melbourne City Council. They've got about, I don't know, it's 4 or 8 gig of point cloud data. It's free. You can just go and download it. The file format of this data is LAS. Now, previously we didn't support LAS files, but now we do. And you can see I've only picked a few tiles, and maybe this is 4 tiles, a point cloud, and it's brought them into Model Viewer. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to tell over the web, but I can rotate this really, really quick. This is really, really fast.
It's coming out pretty well, Andrew. I'm just
flicking my mouse around. Yeah, and look, you can get the idea of just how many points are in here because of the detail as I sort of pan around, the city area and whatever. Now, let me just show you the settings behind that. If I go to the Point Clouds tab and click on Setup, previously we allowed for the import of point clouds, but they're only black and white, and they're only ASCII files. Now we support LAS files, which are quite common. So you can see here I've just added a few tiles from the Melbourne point cloud data set that I found. But there's some really cool utilities that we've added. And let me just go to the settings and show you those. So firstly, you can set up the display of the point cloud. Now mine's set to color because this point cloud was colored. We do have an option, if you do come across a black and white point cloud, we do have an option of draping an image over the point cloud, and that sort of brings it to life a bit. And there's some other options here. If you checked out our webcast from yesterday, you would have seen that we've added some intelligent simplification tools to surfaces. Well, those similar tools apply to a point cloud. You might want to bring in a point cloud to review your design, check things out or whatever. That point cloud might be quite dense and you might just want to simplify it down a little bit. So we've got simplification tools. We have also included, it's probably my favorite option, the ability to create a surface from a point cloud. So what it intelligently does is extracts out the ground data of the point cloud. All you really need to do is tell the software that yes, you want to create a surface, tick on extract ground data, help the software out by saying, hey, we mountains, we building areas, it helps filter out certain objects, and then it'll go and output a surface you can then start using. The other command we put in, which is quite useful, is say you've got a point cloud, but you've got some road design that you've done, car park or some roads or whatever. You can tell the software that when the point cloud is imported, to filter out points that exist where that design is. And I've actually done that on this job. So I brought the point cloud in, but I've told the software to filter the point cloud where my road designs. I've done a quick road design in civil site design. And let me just do a drive along that. Right, but you can see it's filtered out points from the point cloud where that surface exists. So yeah, I mean, I think point cloud's pretty amazing technology. It's getting better and better and better. And the cool thing is a lot of this data is being uploaded and available for free. There is a website you may or may not have used before called Elvis. It stores point cloud data all across Australia, black and white, but as I said, you can bring it to life by draping aerial images over it. So yeah, this is sort of the final thing I wanted to show you. I guess the thing to remember is that these being new feature webcasts, we will be doing more detailed web sessions soon on particular commands and maybe job-specific webcasts, so you can see how the new tools can be used for certain projects. So cool. Well, that's enough for me. So, Jonathan, you want to take back over and share your screen if you like?
Well, actually, no. The only reason why I'm not is because I think one of these questions might be, we've actually got 3 questions we can certainly answer in this session. Got a couple of we'll probably have to answer outside. They're going to be more directed at you. The first one was...
Go easy on me.
Go easy, all right. Well, first one's from Lilac saying, you've mentioned that you can import 3ds Max files. Is there a limit, or does the new engine handle big models made up of millions of polygons?
Yeah, so this new engine, so the file format, OBJ and 3ds, and we are looking at the moment at IFC as well. So the aim is to support a whole raft of 3D model types. In regards to large models, we are doing some stuff to allow you to bring in quite large models and still be able to rotate nice and quick, and and use Model Viewer without any lag. And under toggle display, we do have this new option under 3D display called large model mode. It is beta, but if you were bringing in millions and millions of triangles, you could tick that on, and you would notice that the viewer performs a lot better. So yeah, you can. This viewer can support quite large data sets, and even with the point clouds you saw, I mean, I was rotating, millions of points. I think the maximum I brought in was nearly 20 million points, and usable, I could still rotate around the viewer fine. So this version of Model Viewer is much quicker, upgraded engines, and all of it's processed off your graphics card. So the better graphics card you have, the better results you get in the viewer.
Thanks for that, Andrew. The other question was actually in relation to the cloud background that you've got on there. Where's that come from?
Yep.
How's it being applied? Is this a new feature?
This is the point cloud.
No, sorry, the actual clouds and sky background.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So if I go to viewer settings, model viewer, background, there's the option to apply an image. Now, if you install the new version 19.2, the one I'm using, and you click on the button with the 3 dots to pick a file, if you go to your Common 10 folder, sorry, I think it's in here, Common 10, oh, visualization, yeah. If you go to Common 10 visualization, we have this image here, Skyfront. But it's just what we would call it's not just quite a skybox, but you could go to Google and search for a JPEG for a sky, and then for the image background, you could pick it. But this image that I'm displaying here is actually it's part of the installation. But you just need to go to image and find it in this folder.
Excellent. Yeah, I suppose for anybody that's into, I don't know, anything other like Star Wars or anything like that, you could just put a space background. You can do what you want within reason, I suppose, can't you?
Yeah. Look, the one when I was at your office, I saw a big picture of you in the background. So
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, no, I don't. Got
I'm joking.
no, well, it's good. It got some really interesting questions coming in actually. Steve has asked whether or not there will be a native export for 3D objects to bring from BricsCAD into Model Viewer. He's put he's put DAE. I'm not too sure if a .DAE format. No, I'm not 100% sure on that, Andrew, but maybe you might be able to expand further.
Yeah, there's actually a number of different 3D object types that we could actually expose pretty quickly, but we just haven't. So yeah, there's a whole bunch step files, which I think are what IFC essentially use. There's a whole list. We've really just got to go through and hook them up. Some of them aren't that difficult. So as I sort of said in the webcast yesterday, you will see more regular updates throughout the year. And as those updates come, you will see us begin to support more types of objects. So when you go to import object, this list will get longer, definitely. But the one I'm excited about is IFC, but yeah, we'll have a lot more different object types in there. As long as we have access, I mean, some might be a bit harder, like SketchUp, probably very hard for us to do. Some of the Autodesk ones might be a bit difficult, but certainly the open source 3D objects, yeah, we'll be looking to add those.
Question from Nick, does the Model Viewer have a night/day setting? And in addition, does it support light sources such as car lights or light posts?
When I was mucking around, I did, so the lighting at the moment is one source. You can make it dark and you can put one light source in. So when I was mucking around, I was trying to position roughly where the moon might be or something like that. We will expand on, actually no, sorry, you can put four light sources in. So you can position them, set their direction, which is a vector, and set whether their directional point or spot. We added this in pretty quick. We weren't too sure whether users would use it or not. The thing is it is the feedback from users that drive where we go when we develop. So if a lot of people come to us saying, hey, we want lights and we want light sources where all these light poles are and all of that, then we could we'll certainly review that as a development team, see if we can add that. But that's what we've got at the moment. 4 light sources, you can position them, set their vector, and set what type they are.
We've got a question here regarding LAS files. I'm not too sure of the exact question of whether or not the overall question is saying that are there options for scaling the point cloud file?
No, not at this stage. The only option we have is shifting of it.
Yeah.
But I guess at this point we're assuming that you've probably prepared the point cloud in using another product. Maybe you've used Recap or
Yeah.
some Trimble software, and you've prepared the point cloud, scaled it, and whatever. Once it's all the way you want, then you were using this purely as a viewer.
Yeah. Okay. Then really the last question on here is in regards to displaying the pipes in Model Viewer and whether or not there's ways of customizing the pit types, maybe showing OSD tanks and head walls.
Yeah, so at this stage, we're just displaying a cube and a cylinder. So we spent like a few months. We decided that what we would do is, in regards to objects, we'd work rebuilding a huge sign library, and that visualization pack is made up of hundreds of signs. We've created 3D versions of them. I guess the next step will be to start working on 3D objects for pits and things like that. And because we have this position class, we'll be able to sort of dynamically position those pits, where you've located the pit, and there might be some added controls around that. So certainly, because our vision's BIM and IFC, so certainly will allow users in a future update to position a actual object. So maybe you've modelled a pit with a lintel and all of that, and you want to see it exactly how it will be built in 3D. So that will be the next step. So at the moment, we're just sort of putting a basic cube in or a cylinder. But yeah, the next step for us will be to actually build all those models now that our signage library's done.
That's it on the question front, unless anybody else has got anything else they want to quickly add in. We are going to finish up pretty quickly. We have a very, very brief survey at the end. There's just 5 questions. 2 are related specifically to Model Viewer. Then the other 3 are just to help us improve our webcasts. This webcast will be repeated, as will yesterday's webcast be repeated next week, next Thursday and Friday. And then certainly keep your eyes peeled for future updates on webcasts, because we are planning to do a lot more and cover a lot more content, certainly over the next 12 months now this release is out. So keep an eye out for those. Yeah, and I've just now been asked a question, is there going to be a webcast on VB.net? Now, I know Andrew mentioned this yesterday. It really depends on how much feedback, I guess, we get, Andrew, doesn't it, on who's excited to sort of try it.
Put it this way. If I had 2 people that were interested in doing it, then I would run a web session on it, because I think it's pretty cool, and if those 2 people then made some really useful little applications of CSD, then yeah, that'd be fantastic. So let us know, and then we can put a date in to run a CSD API or introduction into programming with AutoCAD web session.
Yeah. Well, you've got at least one so far. So in the next 30 seconds, if someone comes in and says that they want to as well, then you'll be running a webcast. So there will be other webcasts in addition to that, which we will definitely be running anyway. Certainly, a lot of historical webcasts will be rerun on the modern tools to help with that. We'll be certainly running a lot more in a lot more detail. Fantastic. All right. Well, look, thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for that. Thanks, everyone, for attending. We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. The webcast recording should be available next, we would expect probably on Monday. So if you do want both webcast recordings, next Monday they should both be on the YouTube channel ready to roll. Thank you very much. Actually, I think Steve has just jumped in to say he might want to do the VB.net webcast. So there is at least 2 now, Andrew. You are now committed.
Well, it's locked in. It's going to happen.
It's locked in. It's going to happen.
We'll just set a date.
Definitely. No, look, for those of you that don't know anything about it, a few of us from the team did some training on it last week. Who've got virtually no experience of developing in that area. Very, very interesting though. It's very, very powerful. Really very interesting to see how you can actually use the Civil Site Design API to get the tools done. Use the API to generate your own tools effectively. Yeah, that'd be good. Marvelous. All right, guys, we'll have to call it a day there. If you do have further questions, feel free to email us. There will be a short survey at the end where you can possibly attach some questions as well, if you do have any. But we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.